Today, we are opening up a really unique set of sources. They outline this conflict so personal, so intense. It basically forced a grieving family into launching what you could only call a surgical campaign of information warfare.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
We're talking about a deep dive into a bitter family struggle, a widow versus her ex-in-laws. And the really fascinating part, it wasn't decided in court.
No, not at all. The battleground was, well, pretty unexpected.
A deeply conservative religious community. That's where this whole thing played out. Okay, so let's unpack this. Our listener, she's a 46-year-old widow. She was actually mid-divorce when her ex-husband tragically died in an accident.
Just a terrible situation to begin with.
Right. And the immediate aftermath, you'd think it would be about grief, dealing with the loss. But no, it instantly became about defense.
Against the ex-in-laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're analyzing the step-by-step strategy she executed, how she used absolutely indisputable evidence. We're talking documentation of her late ex-husband's cheating to protect her daughters.
And to stop the relentless and aggressive tactics of her ex-in-laws.
Yeah.
What really stand out here right from the start is the precision of her counterattack.
Yeah.
This wasn't just, blurting out a secret.
Yeah, it was planned.
It was a focused operation.
Yeah.
And it cleverly leveraged the community's own specific values. This community, as we'll get into, had this really rigid moral framework.
And she saw that.
She recognized that framework was her ultimate weapon. Her goal was basically narrative control. She needed to flip the script.
Take the moral high ground back.
Exactly. And the documentation, the proof, that was the key to taking it from her in-laws and putting it firmly back with her and her daughters.
So let's set the scene first, the emotional context. It's incredibly complex. You've got the widow, 46, and her two teenage daughters, 17 and 15.
Already dealing with the trauma of losing their father.
But that grief was just contaminated. Because it turns out the daughters were the ones who first discovered their dad's infidelity.
Wow, that's rough.
And it gets worse. They also found out about two orphaned half-siblings. The affair partner had also died.
Good grief. It's almost an unimaginable scenario for those girls.
Right. And instead of support, what did they get from the ex-in-laws? These are older people, 78 and 80.
They immediately escalated the whole crisis. The source material we looked at highlights two really staggering aggressive moves they made.
Go on.
First, they actually tried to get legal custody of the teenage daughters.
Away from their mother.
Yes, which forced the widow into a court battle while grieving. And second, they tried to force themselves into the widow's home, to live with her.
Wait, to move in with her after trying to take her kids?
Both things she obviously contested.
The sheer audacity, especially when you find out from the source material that the in-laws were actually okay financially.
That's a crucial piece. The ex-husband's personal bank account and his entire life insurance policy went directly to his parents.
Not to the daughters he left behind.
Nope, straight to the parents. Yet, publicly, they played the victim card. Hard. That's the first layer of their own strategy. Public deception. They went on to the church Facebook group.
Oh, boy.
And they circulated this heartbreaking story, claiming the widow and her daughters were leaving them homeless and penniless.
But they just got the inheritance.
Exactly. Completely ignoring that significant windfall. But the really venomous lie was about the orphan sons, the ones from the affair.
Okay, what did they say?
Well, I see their church has this absolute zero-tolerance policy on adultery. Cheating is a major, major sin.
Right, no wiggle room there.
So to avoid admitting their own son was a cheater, the ex-mother-in-law just concocted this bizarre and incredibly cruel narrative.
Let me guess, something to protect his image.
Totally. She claimed the deceased woman, the affair partner, wasn't an affair partner at all. She claimed she was merely a surrogate.
A surrogate? Why?
Because, according to the mother-in-law's story, the widow couldn't have more children. So they hired this woman.
That is quite a stretch.
And it doesn't even stop there. That's not the most manipulative part.
Seriously.
To really twist the knife and shame the widow further, the mother-in-law publicly stated that the widow refused to take in these poor baby boys simply because they were male.
Oh, come on. That's low.
It's an accusation perfectly designed to leverage the community's piety against the widow. Make her look heartless, unchristian, all within the very specific moral context where she lived.
So they were using their faith.
Deliberately. As a shield for their son's cheating and as a weapon against the widow. It's pretty calculated stuff.
Okay, so this brings us to the point where things really escalate. The passive aggression, the Facebook lies, that turns into outright hostile action.
Yeah, the quiet social campaign suddenly got very loud and very physical. It culminated in this incident at a farmer's market.
And this wasn't just some awkward run-in, was it?
No, no, this was targeted. Public shaming.
Yeah.
It really crossed the line.
What happened exactly?
Okay, so the younger daughter, the 15-year-old, it was her birthday. She's having a small outing, spending her birthday budget on, like, chocolate and sweets at a weekend market.
Just trying to have a normal moment.
Exactly. A little bit of simple happiness amidst all this grief and stress. Instead, she gets ambushed.
Ambushed? By who?
She gets cornered by 6 older women, all described as close friends of the ex-mother-in-law from the church.
6 of them. Against a teenager.
Yeah. And they just launch into this full-scale berating, attacking the girl for being unchristian because she didn't want to see her grandparents.
Yes, who were trying to take her away from her mom.
Right. They told her she needed to step up, be a good big sister to her poor orphaned baby brothers.
Using the surrogate lie.
Directly. It just shows how effective the mother-in-law's propaganda had been within that church circle. These women felt completely justified attacking a grieving teenager on her birthday.
That's horrifying. Did the widow step in?
She did. And when the widow intervened, the attack just turned on her.
Yeah.
The women started shouting that she was failing in her duty.
Failing how?
Because she refused to, and this is a direct quote from the source, obey my ex-in-laws like a good Christian wife.
Obey them. Wow.
The whole thing got so loud and disruptive that the market management actually asked them all to leave.
Understandable.
But here's the really chilling part. The sources describe these 6 women just fueled by this misplaced moral indignation, following the widow and her daughters all the way back to their car.
Following them.
Harassing them like a group of vultures. That's the quote.
Okay. That's terrifying. That's not just gossip anymore.
No. That's a clear defensive line being crossed. Irrevocably.
That kind of public humiliation, the psychological assault, especially on kids who are grieving.
That's the inflection point right there. You can see why at that moment the widow realized she couldn't just keep defending against these lies passively.
She had to go on the offensive.
She had to surgically dismantle the in-laws' credibility, their moral authority. And she had to do it within the very community they were weaponizing against her.
The only way to stop the harassment was to turn the community against the harassers.
Exactly. And this is where the strategic brilliance really comes into play.
She didn't hire a PI or anything?
Didn't need to. She knew the battlefield, and she knew her opponent's biggest vulnerability. That small saving grace of the church, as the source puts it.
Their absolute strictness about cheating.
Fierce, unyielding doctrine. That was now her ammunition.
And crucially, she had access to the information, right? Because the divorce wasn't finalized.
That's key. Because the divorce was incomplete when the ex died, she still had access to, well, his digital life, documents collected during the separation process.
So she could gather proof without legal wrangling over evidence for a court case?
Okay.
This is for a different kind of battle.
Precisely. A community battle.
Yeah.
And she collected everything.
What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Oh, explicit pictures of the ex cheating, including one particularly damning image, him and the affair partner making out.
Okay.
Right there in the widow's own living room.
No way.
Oh, yes. She also had text conversations between the couple, proving the intimate nature of the relationship, completely destroying that surrogate lie.
That alone is pretty explosive for that community.
But wait, there's more. The truly devastating material wasn't just proof of the affair itself. It was proof of the in-laws' complicity.
Ew.
The evidence included texts showing the ex-in-laws actually confessing to knowing about their son's cheating. And not just knowing, but offering him encouragement and support.
So they were endorsing the sin, according to their own church rules.
Directly violating their own tenets. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was the raw emotional cruelty aimed directly at the daughters.
From the grandparents.
Yes. She secured emails and texts from the in-laws bullying the girls, including messages where they outright call their own granddaughters bastards.
Oh, my God.
And maybe the most chilling part, a text sent literally 2 days after their father's fatal accident, blaming the daughters for his death.
How could they possibly justify that?
Because the daughters were the ones who told the widow about the affair, which triggered the divorce proceedings.
Yeah.
It's a level of pathological blame that's hard to fathom.
That kind of specific cruelty, that's what turns abstract anger into something the community can really react to.
Exactly. That documentation wasn't just evidence, it was the ultimate weapon.
Right.
But how she delivered it, that was a masterstroke of execution.
Okay, how does she do it? Just dump it online?
No. much more targeted.
Yep.
She took all this evidence, the pictures, the text, everything, printed it all out on high-quality paper,
Right.
and created these customized evidence packets. She actually called them delightfully personalized binders.
Binders.
Yeah, but designed very specifically. They were made to look exactly like the prayer song booklets the church handed out every Sunday for the hymns.
Oh, clever. Very clever.
It was an intentional act, right?
Yeah.
Embedding the ugly truth within the sacred context they were trying to hide behind.
So the delivery itself.
A carefully planned coup. She arrived before the Sunday service, placed these hymn-like binders strategically on the songbook desk where everyone would pick one up.
So people walked in, reached for what they thought was the usual worship aid.
Exactly. And what's the very first thing they see when they open this seemingly innocent pamphlet?
Let me guess. The picture. The picture. Of the ex-husband and the side woman making out, with their names clearly captioned right underneath. Ex-husband's name and a fair girl's name, love story.
Oof. That would stop people in their tracks.
And remember the surrogate lie. The source mentions the affair partner had clearly different skin and hair tones than the widow.
So the visual immediately disproved the mother-in-law's story.
Instantly. Ludicrously false. The claim that she was just a surrogate carrying the widow's children, poof. Gone. The moral war was officially launched right there in the church lobby.
Wow. So the fallout must have been immediate.
Exactly as targeted information warfare should be. Immediate, localized, and absolutely devastating to the antagonists. The gossip mill, as you can imagine, went into hyperdrive.
I bet.
The community reaction was apparently so intense, so harsh, that we know the pastor actually had to intervene on the church's Facebook page.
To calm things down, just to try and enforce some relative civility in the comments. The names being thrown around for the ex-husband and the affair partner, the source mentions Jezebel, showed just how deeply the community felt this moral violation.
So, total condemnation for the ex and the affair partner. What about the widow and the daughters?
Well, what's fascinating is the sort of nuanced reaction the widow received. It wasn't just a simple, immediate embrace.
No.
Their church members did apologize to the daughters. They invited the widow for support. But the community structure is so rigid.
They still had issues with the divorce itself.
Exactly. Even in light of this horrific betrayal, they still felt compelled to acknowledge that technically she was wrong for initiating the divorce in the first place.
That's a very specific moral calculus.
Yes, that's the critical analytical point here.
Yeah.
They noted she was technically failing in her duties as a wife by seeking separation, but, and this is the key part, they deemed it understandable that she failed on her duties after the shock.
So the cheating trumped the divorce rule.
In their strict moral economy, yes. The unforgivable sin was the husband's adultery and the in-laws' complicity in lies. That core betrayal of fidelity, their most sacred rule, overrode the social rules about marital stability.
Which means the primary shame landed squarely on.
The husband and, crucially, the in-laws. They bore the unforgivable shame.
And the result for them in the community.
Total victory for the widow on that battlefield. The ex-in-laws were, quote, shamed into leaving the church.
Wow. Cut off completely.
Cut off from their most vital social network. The source mentions the XML posted later somewhere about feeling alienated, wishing her great son was still alive to take care of her and her husband.
Conveniently forgetting the widow was the breadwinner.
Exactly. Conveniently ignoring the source material showing the widow had actually been the primary earner. They lost their moral standing, which, after the inheritance, was really the only currency they had left.
So this whole case really shows she didn't need to win some long, drawn-out legal or financial fight to get security.
Not for this specific goal. She needed to win the moral and social battle in that specific environment. And she did it. By providing specific, undeniable information directly to the audience whose values govern the conflict.
And we have to remember that foundation too, the will. The ex telling her he'd named the daughters, but the documents proving he named his parents.
Right. That initial financial betrayal kind of fueled the in-laws' sense of entitlement and their aggression, which the truth bomb in those binders just completely dismantled piece by piece.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean?
Well, this deep dive is just a powerful lesson in strategic engagement, isn't it? The widow knew her enemy's social structure, maybe even better than they did themselves.
She used their holiest rule against them.
She weaponized it to enforce a kind of justice where maybe the legal system would have been slow or, frankly, ineffective in stopping that kind of relentless emotional harassment.
It's a really remarkable study in the power of documentation. and the absolute necessity of knowing the specific, sometimes unique rules of the field you find yourself fighting on.
It really is. And it raises an important question, I think, for you, the listener, to consider. When information is used strategically like this to expose secrets and enforce community justice, does that immediate targeted revelation disrupt things? Or does it ultimately reinforce the power structure of that tight-knit community?
Does the shaming fix the problem or just push it underground?
Yeah, how does that public shaming really affect the long-term enforcement of justice, especially when the source of the shame is internal, someone from within the group itself? What happens to those power dynamics when the secrets finally come out?
Lots to think about there.
We'll leave that question with you.